Spill water all over everywhere. What's going on, everybody? This is Moose and Brian here from OccupyFantasy.com. At Occupy Fantasy on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. I am your host, Moose, at CFB_Moose on Twitter. Co-founder and data guru here at Occupy Fantasy, alongside Brian. At Brian Jester FF on Twitter is where you can find him. He is the co-founder and CEO of Occupy Fantasy. So we're here to talk about some NFL. Brian, how's it going?
Pretty exhausted. We had to push this back a little bit because of the early UFC card, the big 280 card. So we pushed this back. Normally I would be asleep after a UFC card, but now I have to start the NFL grind because I haven't really done much. I've run some lineups, but I haven't really gone through the process yet. But yeah, happy to talk with you. And Moose, I know that probably a lot of people are not going to tune in live because NBA starts in an hour and a half, which we should probably promote just a little bit in case those who are watching for NFL don't know about some of the new NBA stuff we have.
Yes, absolutely. So, NBA, absolutely crushing it. The team we have together are some straight fire, straight gas, whatever you want to call it. Loving it. We have the early morning preview video out each and every day. And then right before lock, 30 minutes before lock, we're going onto our Discord channel. We're having one of our NBA analysts break down the slate and answer your questions live in our voice channel. You can ask questions. They're breaking it down, digesting breaking news, which I think, Brian, is so important because in a sport like NBA, and our analysts, they see starting lineups, and if something's just slightly out of whack, boom, they already know exactly who benefits. They talk about how the model updates, how ownership updates. Just absolute fantastic thing.
Yeah, really happy. But you and I both weren't entirely sure when we made this leap to take the daily plug away from NBA. And guys, we'll get to NFL here in a second. Just want to talk about this first. Yeah, we took a leap to do that. And yeah, fortunately, it's been great so far. The new content plan's been great. A lot of positive feedback. So yeah, if you guys like NBA DFS, make sure you check out the videos on the channel and join the Discord and all that good stuff. Most you good? I saw you disappear from the screen for a sec.
Yeah, I noticed that I forgot to plug my computer in. I was like, why is it not charging? And I was like, is my battery dead again? And I looked, I was like, oh, I probably should plug my computer in, like in the actual outlet. So I had to disappear for a second.
The stream was inches away from being disconnected.
Definitely. So let's go ahead. We're gonna be talking about NFL here until about 6 o'clock or so, and breaking it down. So Brian, I'll start off very high level. Always talk about that. Talk about game stacking, some games to stack. If you take a look at the Occupy Fantasy Daily Plug, which will be posted in the chat as well, you take a look at some of the top stacks, and we'll start off Seattle and Chargers. Seems like a pretty good game. Brian, I'm curious to hear your thoughts about it.
Yeah, I love that game. That one seems pretty straightforward from we need to stack this game perspective, but there's some different qualities and some news we have to watch out for. So the Chargers, I think, are expected to get Keenan Allen back, and that throws a wrench into things because when asked about Allen's return, Brandon Staley, the head coach, said that yes, we're going to ease him back in. Maybe he gets a full-time role, but it just sounded like the when Keenan comes back, the first week he comes back, it will be some sort of limited role. So can we really play Keenan Allen if he's in a limited role? He was seen at practice on Friday in the red zone drills in the walkthrough, which their beat reporter says is an indication that he will play. He's part of the game plan. But actually, have you checked his price moves, Keenan Allen? I'll check it real quick if not.
I can check here.
Allen. As you look it up, that makes stacking interesting if Keenan plays any type of role. He's 6,700 on DraftKings. Like that's not remotely cheap, right? And so, what's interesting to me about stacking this is, I think you can do a 2x1 and play whether it's Mike Williams or Gerald Everett, both of who the model really likes. And if Keenan does enough to take away from any of those secondary receivers, all that kind of washes out. Mm-hmm. And it's really hard to 3x1 stack. Yeah, you can play Mike Williams and Everett together and just hope that Keenan's not fully there. But I think the way I would play it is I wouldn't play Allen, and I don't even know if you can really play DeAndre Carter or Michael Bandy, these other secondary receivers, if we get word that Allen's is in. And they only elevated one receiver from the practice squad. Joshua Palmer is out. That's the reason they elevated Michael Bandy. But you would figure that if Allen was out, they would have elevated another receiver as well because they do have a couple in the practice squad. So I don't know. I was just thinking about that today, and I think it's a really interesting scenario that we really haven't quite seen where we have a pricey player who's in a part-time role as a part of a game that we want to stack. What do you
Yeah,
think?
I was gonna say it almost kind of reminds me of last week actually with Cincinnati where we had
Oh, true.
a wide receiver questionable, and while it didn't necessarily cannibalize wide receiver one Jamar Chase, it did hinder potentially some output, and a two was it a 2x1 that won last week with
Yep.
them? Yeah. So I could definitely see 2x1ing this game, and then if Keenan Allen's out, maybe you swap it up to a 3x1.
That's a great comparison. I didn't even think about that, but that's really smart. And yeah, because if he's out, then we got multiple Curtis Samuel pieces to play with them, whether it's DeAndre Carter or Michael Bandy.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe small field, you can go 3-1 with Everett and Williams, maybe 4x1. As we've talked about mega stacks, you add on Austin Eckler there. But yeah, that's actually really smart moves. I think 2x1 is the way to go. But actually, if we look on the flip side too, the Seattle Seahawks, there was some concern. Tyler Lockett didn't practice all week. And you normally with a hamstring, you would think, oh, he's definitely out, not going to play. But Pete Carroll said it was precautionary. They're going to rest him, and if he doesn't practice, he'll be fine. So it sounds like he's going to play and have a normal role. That does cause a little concern. But I think we do like stacking Seattle games because of the narrow target tree. So yeah, I'm glad we talked that out because that makes a lot of sense to me.
And also, I think I don't know if this is super galaxy branding or not, but we do like both sides of that game. Where if you're playing that, and it is a 425 game, so many people might necessarily not late swap or something. But if that does come out and Keenan Allen's in, you can always swap and say, oh, instead of you might have to fool around, maybe you do some weird things with your salary, but instead of going 3x1 on Chargers, maybe you go 3x1 Seahawks, switch it up a little
True.
bit at the late swap.
True.
So I think there's different options. I think that you can definitely go with that game.
Yeah, and either way, it's a game that we want to target. It pops on a lot
Yes.
of the metrics that we look at. Chris wrote it up in the plug, obviously, and I'm just looking at the totals here. And yeah, the total for that game is 50. So yeah, one of the higher on the week.
Yes, absolutely. And another game that is interesting to talk about is the return of Dak Prescott, the Dallas Cowboys in Detroit. Brian, I'm curious to hear your thoughts about this one.
Yeah, so Chris wrote this one up too, and I think it's another prototypical stack, and I think the field's going to like it, especially the Dallas side. It didn't pop as much for me personally, some of the stuff that I look at. And I think there are some concerns if you're stacking this game. Mostly Dak's return. How's he going to look after the thumb injury? Dalton Schultz is questionable. They did call up the practice squad tight end again, which they've done every time Schultz has been out, which, he's been cleared to play before and it has been a surprise inactive. So I guess I wouldn't be shocked if he's out. And then we have Ferguson and Hendershot splitting targets again, which isn't great for game stacks. Detroit side, Chark is out. Reynolds is super questionable. St. Jerry Rice is back fully. Swift is back, but not fully. So it's a really tough. It's kind of a similar game environment, but it's on both sides. It's really tough to stack. I think I would much rather just play the pieces we know from that game.
Yes.
CeeDee Lamb, Amon-Ra St. Brown, play those guys, and then for me at least, it's harder to just fully stack than some of these other games.
Yeah, it's very, very difficult. You pretty much hit that on the head there. There are some metrics that point out for me that I do like, assuming that everyone's healthy and does whatever that we need to do. So again, a game to monitor. If it works the way that you like, definitely go ahead and play it. I wouldn't fault anyone for playing that game.
And pretty much anytime we overrule a Chris stack in the plug, it almost always goes off. So that should be your leading indicator to play that game.
Yes, absolutely. Again, if you guys have questions, we're here till 6 o'clock or so. Go ahead and ask them, and we'll go ahead and answer them. Ed says Derrick Henry needs 2 touchdowns at home to be the all-time Titans franchise record holder. It's getting to him over Jacobs for me.
Yeah, well, they're completely different prices, fortunately, so you could play both if you wanted to. But Henry does top the model, and yeah, he's in a good spot. So running back is interesting this week. I guess we could talk about that for a second before we get back to the game stacks, because
Definitely.
unlike last week where we had so many value guys, it's like, wow, we could play Ramondre, we could play Eno, we could play Kenneth Walker. Like, it was just, I don't know what to do with all these value running backs, right? This week, it's there's not many, right? And the ownership reflects that a bit when you look at least our latest run of ownership. We have Josh Jacobs at, this is DraftKings, by the way. We have Josh Jacobs at 30-something%. We have, of course, my ownership just died as I was saying that. But Josh Jacobs 30%, a couple other guys in that 20% range, Kenneth Walker. Damian Pierce. I think you're going to concentrate on a bunch of guys here, and there's really not many pivot points. There are some guys maybe that the model likes, but I think Moose this week is one of those weeks where we're much better off getting different at the receiver position.
Yeah, exactly. And as I look at the receivers, as it came out earlier with the CMC trade, what's his name, Deontay Foreman, doesn't rank that highly in the model. I know he's 4K, super cheap, but projected to get roughly 10 or so touches. Brian, you said the coach said that whoever gets the hot hand. I don't know. I think there's just enough other players. I know his price tag is like really incentivizing us to play him, but I think there's other routes that you can go.
Yeah, I mean it's nice, right? And if he gets the hot hand, but it's kind of like the Deion Jackson situation last week, which obviously worked out, but a lot of things have to go right. He has to not only get the majority of touches, he also has to score really well on a really bad team. And he has to outscore all the other running backs. And when you put it that way, it makes it really tough. And yeah, I would just rather avoid the situation, I think.
Yeah, definitely agree. Let's see if we have any more questions. MD says, "Yo, Brian, what stack should I play in the Millie? Give me your favorite, and I'm going all in." Which kind of gives us a great transition, Brian, because I think I've almost kind of talked you into this a little bit. But as we transition to our next stack piece, is a Cincinnati side just by themselves, and we'll talk about them for a little bit.
Yes, so Cincinnati 3-0 stack is interesting. It was popping for me anyway. Well, that game was popping, and I'm like, I'm not fucking stacking Atlanta, right? Just because they ran the ball nearly 70% of the time last week.
Yeah.
And obviously they were winning, but even if they trail, that number still stays like 45%. It's like historically in the modern era or the last few years, historically low. So fully stacking them is out of the question, out of the picture. Yeah. But even if they're going to continue to run that much, they split the carries in the backfield. They're not targeting Pitts in London at a high rate in terms of raw volume. Yes, their percentages are great, but yeah, I think as we saw last week, you, me, and Lead were talking about Cincinnati going to shotgun more and just embracing let Burrow throw. Just we're not running the ball effectively. Let's just throw it. Higgins fully practiced this week, is off the injury report, so we get him fully back. So yeah, you can play Chase, Higgins, Boyd, Hurst. Hurst ranks second in the model.
Yeah.
Burrow 3-0 stacks. If you want to run him back, if you're playing a bunch of lineups, maybe some of your lineups running back with Pitts or London. I really like the idea, and it's one of the more straightforward stacks, I think, especially the 7-point favorite.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that. And I'm actually considering in some small field lineups. I know we talk about mega stacking and then potentially punting that tight end position. There's a couple of lineups I made that had, just a 3-0 Bengals stack, and then I made it a 4-0, just threw Hayden Hurst second in the model. Yep. Maybe he gets a couple catches. Hopefully he doesn't cannibalize too much. But also, Brian, we talked about it last week where Cincinnati, it was very dead set on what had to happen. There wasn't many pieces to go around. I think that's why you were off. Now this week, we have all the pieces. There's so many different ways that you can go about this. Burrow, Mixon, Chase. Burrow, Chase, Higgins. Burrow, Mixon, Hurst. It's so many different combinations that I really like this stack. And I'm not saying it as a Cincinnati fan. I'm saying it as someone who actually profited from Cincinnati last week. And a fan, but
yeah, just gonna run it right back. They it's funny looking at my metrics is actually the best stack ranking for me, and I agree with all your points. And the Hurst thing, adding it to make it a 4-0 seems excessive, perhaps, especially when you think of, oh my God, he might cannibalize. But generally, when we mega stack or game stack, one of those pieces is super cheap, and Hurst is only 3,500 on DraftKings. So even if he gets 4 for 48 points, that's certainly enough. I ideally he gets in the end zone, but no, I'm with you, Moose. I think Bengal stack is a great stack this week.
Woohoo! Nice. And Burrow was number one quarterback, and for a little bit during the week, Derek Carr actually overtook him for a little bit, but we won't.
Which is maybe another stat we should talk about.
Yeah, and but really quick. Let's see here. Ed says, "Are we off Brady stacks this week?"
I'm not doing it. If he wins somebody $1 million, happy for that person. But given their offensive line struggles, given this low total, given Brian Burns and some of the pass rush on Carolina, I'm good, dude. I'm good. I'm not. They don't. But it's not like they rank highly for me. And I would say, okay, cool, let's play it. It's like no, they don't. And that total has dropped. I imagine because McCaffrey has been traded and Robbie Anderson rage quit. but like their team total. Let me find it real quick.
It's pretty low.
Yeah, the game totals dropped a couple points, so yeah, I'm out.
Yeah, exactly. I don't even think they're. I can't even find them in the model. Yeah, they're very low.
Yeah.
But yes, and it turns out Dot Bets is actually just Ed's burner account. He says, any interest in a Colt stack?
I mean, I guess people are back on it after last week. It's like, oh, Ryan threw for 350 yards. He's not dust. It's like, yeah, he was great last week, and I get it this week. But this is already the second divisional meeting. We know that passing performance drops by a significant margin in second divisional meetings, and that's what this one is. Somehow we already get it in week 7, which is crazy. Yeah, I don't know, man. There's too many other stacks for me to really like. Plus, we get JT back this week. The reason they passed so much last week, you got to figure JT was out, Hines was out. Like, we're not gonna give Deion Jackson 100 carries or Dusty Phillip Lindsay. So now JT's back. Just be prepared for some bullshit first and second down runs and put the team in bad spots. So given the fact, I know a lot of I've seen some Twitter buzz about the Colts stacks. But given the second divisional matchup, given JT's back, I'm off it. I'll let other people play that, and if it hits, it hits. But I would much rather play these other stacks we talked about.
Yeah. And Matt says, considering changing one of my small field single entry stacks from Dak to Bengals 3-0. Bengals smashed 31-10. It works.
Yeah. Honestly, even if they win like 31-24, and Atlanta just does their bullshit run stuff, like your 3-0 will still win. So
yeah, definitely. So while we're waiting for some more questions, #ad. This is don't forget about the NFL strategy guide that we have up on the website for free. A high-level strategy roadmap for how to build profitable NFL DFS lineups for FanDuel and DraftKings contests. You can read now at OccupyFantasy.com. Go ahead and check the link that I posted a little bit earlier up for the daily plug. That picture is in there. You can click it. Go ahead and read it. It's evergreen, completely awesome. Go ahead and check it out. Okay, cool. So back to that, Brian, I actually wanted to talk really quick before we talked about some others. Actually, we can talk about the other stacks now. We talked about the Houston and Las Vegas. Yeah, that one doesn't really pop too much for me. I was curious if that, but the Derek Carr being number 1, I wonder if that popped any for you.
It did pop for me, and Vegas for some reason can't stop quarterbacks, and so it's like, am I really gonna stack Davis Mills? I'm considering it. 7 points is about the threshold where we start to think, all right, do we want to play both sides of this game stack? But I think the way you can play this is pretty simple because we have Brandon Cooks, we have Nico Collins. Those guys have been dominating opportunities. They got a cheap tight end, O.J. Howard. You can play. If you want to run with Dameon Pierce, who's been running more routes, I get it too. But lots of different ways to play it. And this game should score 50-plus points according to the betting markets, and I think we agree with that. It says 45, but I like this game to go over. The concern, obviously, is if they just run Jacobs 60 times and no one wins. So the injury news, though, that makes it a cheaper stack is Darren Waller is out for the Raiders. It sounds like Renfro and Matt Collins will be okay, but we get Foster Moreau, who's going to be the starting tight end there, and he is mega cheap, and maybe he'll be owned, especially in like cash and stuff. Maybe he'll be pretty popular, but 2,800 on DraftKings. We do have him now projected for 9%, so it looks like he will be popular. But you add in a little Derek Carr, Devontae Adams, Foster Moreau, 3x1, running back with Pierce, running back with Brandon Cooks, whoever. Even flip it. You want to get crazy. Davis Mills wins somebody a milli. I really like that game stack. I'll be stacking both sides.
Okay, I dig it. Yeah, it should be very interesting. Ed says I love the Lamar Duvernay 2x1 with Cooper run back this week.
That's the other stack moves.
Yep, that's another way you can go. And we talk about with rushing quarterbacks or quarterbacks with rushing upside. 2-1 stack, generally speaking, is the better way to go because their rushing upside does cannibalize some of their passing game, which again hinders other multiple players. So yeah, I do like that game. They do pop a little bit on my radar. Brian, it seems like one of those weeks where there's too many good stacks.
I know. Unlike last week where I could only find 5 and I missed the 6th one, which would have won me a lot of money. Too many this week, so I'm sure I'll exclude the wrong one. But just some more injury notes for that game. Mark Andrews didn't practice all week. He played a lot of snaps the week before, and they said it was just rest. He came back to practice Friday. He was in the locker room on Friday, said, I'm going to play him fine. So he sounds good to go. But J.K. Dobbins is out, and initially the thought was, okay, Kenyon Drake has been playing really well. He played really well last week. Maybe he's the guy we play. But Justice Hill wasn't out. He was running ahead of Drake before he got injured. And now Gus Edwards was activated off injured reserve today. So now it's a three-headed approach. We're going to avoid that backfield. But now we can just play Lamar and Devin Duvernay, who's an underperforming wide receiver, and Mark Andrews. And then we can run it back with Cooper or Chubb or Njoku, whoever. So lots of options there, and skinny target trees, which is something we always like.
Definitely. Another stack that pops up for .best, he says Kansas City, San Francisco, expensive, but both teams have given up some big plays. Is there any interest in that game? Brian, that actually hasn't popped up. It popped up for me for a little bit, mainly the Kansas City side, not so much for San Francisco. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's tough. We talk about all these teams with clear targets, and excuse me, but are we going to go back to Juju, who was an underperformer wide receiver last week, and we got on it, but MVS is just not. Has been non-existent. Juju hasn't. While Juju did well last week, he only had 6 targets. They're going to feed Kelsey. They got the running back rotation. San Francisco runs at a high rate. Is McCaffrey going to play? I still haven't seen whether or not he's going to play. That messes things up too. So while it may be high scoring, I'm not really sure it's a fantasy-friendly environment, or at least one that we can predict with any amount of certainty to play in a lineup. At least that's my opinion, Moose.
I think it's reasonable. Yeah. Let's see. Ed says, saw Handler talks in the Discord. He fits perfect as a cheap piece. What's your favorite under 4K non-tight end, unless we like 2 tight end builds?
No, we don't. Is that KJ Hamler? Because the one thing, obviously Russ Wilson is out. Brett Rippon's going to start there for the Broncos this week. But we have 20, 30 mile an hour gusts in that game, and that total's dropped already, even before the Russ news. So yeah, I don't know. I'm not playing too many passing pieces from there, especially not KJ Hamler, who could only get 2 or 3 targets from Russ Wilson. How many more could he get from Brett Rippon? So as far as 3K or 4K or less, oh man, it's kind of gross. Keep an eye on the Detroit situation. If Josh Reynolds is out, that opens up potentially some receivers there. Let me see here. And yeah, keep an eye on the Keenan Allen situation. DeAndre Carter or Michael Bandy could be options. And maybe Paris Campbell, your boy in Indy, who caught a touchdown last week. So
yeah. Ooh, voice crack there. Ooh. Yep, pretty much.
Dude, mine too. I've been watching UFC all day, not really speaking much until now, and drinking sparkling water. My throat is destroyed right now.
Definitely. BE says, when you do multiple 3x1 stacks for the same team, do you run it back with a player on the other side?
I think it means do you run it back with the same player on the other side? Yeah. So it depends. This is where I like using the builder. If one guy is like clearly the guy that's popping up a lot, I'll just run that back. Or if it's one guy that's a clear play. But in my 150, for instance, or even if you're playing 20 max, I would run it back with different players, assuming you like those guys. Certainly, using just the same guy every single time limits the amount of things you have to get right. But if you're playing mass multi-entry, you want to mix it up and try to get different combinations.
Yep, you pretty much hit that on the spot there. Really quick before going to Ed's question and start to wrap up the show, you mentioned Russ is out. Russ cannot cook right now. He is stuck cooking Hot Pockets in the microwave. What are your thoughts on Jets defense? Are what, 7th, 8th in the model or so? Pretty cheap, 2,600. As we talked about in the Occupy Staff Chat, they're basically a staple for low risk. You just play them. They're going to be the most popular defense. Are you fading Jets? I mean, there's a couple other cheap ones around them in the model, but just curious to hear your thoughts.
God, I'll be playing them. I'm looking now. Yeah, they'll be in my player pool. I mean, they're 5th or 6th now, even with the update that we just did a couple hours ago. So I think you got to play them. The other cheaper defenses are definitely leaps of faith in Houston, Seattle. Mm-hmm. So yeah, the Jets defense looks good, and I'm fucking sick of losing to the Charlotte defenses. So they'll be in a little bit of my lineups, and because they've hit the ceiling every single time in the past like 5 weeks. So yeah, we'll see. It's a good spot. But I've been concerned about some of the ceilings for these other defenses, but they've been getting the ceiling plays with the pick sixes and the block punts. There shouldn't be a ton of passing volume for Denver, so I'm really not sure how many points the Jets defense can accumulate for fantasy. But again, the model's picking up on something. They are ranked 6th, so.
Yep. Cool. So as Ed points out, best worst and worst best.
The worst best is the Jets defense, I guess, at their ownership. But let me look here. So for worst best, I mean, probably, I would say probably Tyler Lockett if he truly is banged up with his hamstring at 20% or whatever we project.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not a great play. What do you think?
I was going to go for running back and say, JT is going to be back. He is relatively expensive. I think that's the worst best play. Worst best play, yeah.
Worst best play. All right, and the best worst play, sub 5%. Obviously, we'll go for receiver here. It's always the move. So sub 5%. Might as well just go with our work here. Most sub 10%, 5K or less.
And I am bringing up the model here on screen. So people, if you want to screenshot, if you don't have a membership, go ahead and screenshot.
Which, by the way, you called Ayuk last week and he scored 2 touchdowns, which was insanity.
Yeah,
Good work there.
I am crushing this one. So under 10%, and what is it, 5K?
Yeah. All right, I got an easy one. I'll let you pick the hard one since you're apparently really good at picking it anyways.
Okay.
But Devin Duvernay, underperforming wide receiver. We've talked about the different levels of adding on to underperforming wide receiver ceilings. I mentioned in the Discord, I think yesterday, the first level. So we have underperforming wide receivers, the first level, right? These guys have seen a lot of targets and they haven't performed. Generally, they blow up in the following weeks. So he meets that criteria. Then we have levels to that. We have opposing cornerback is out. Denzel Ward is out, so he checks that box. Teammates are out. Rashad Bateman's probably going to miss the game. We'll check. We'll monitor that. Check. So now we already got the go-to check marks for an underperforming wide receiver blow-up game. Now we have a third one. We get the ultimate narrative. Their offensive coordinator said we need to get him the ball more. I'm looking at my notes after the game last week, and it literally says, "Get Devin Duvernay the ball more!" Exclamation point. Like how? Like come on, dude. And he's 3%. How much more can we add on to this underperforming wide receiver angle here? So.
Yeah, that's tough. I'm looking here. I'm trying to think. There's some. Yeah, that's the easy one. Devin Duvernay. If I'm looking here.
Sorry for taking the easy one, by the way. I'll let you. You've been picking the hard ones anyway, so I figured you'll be okay.
I know. I was thinking. Let's see. I might have to dig super deep for this one. Damn, there's like nobody good here. Hold on, let me look up one thing really quick. Brian, are there any questions that I'm missing?
Yeah. So Darren says seems like one or both of Austin Eckler or Mike Williams are going to go ham tomorrow. I agree in general, and he clarifies if Keenan Allen is out again. It sounds like Keenan's going to play. Just judging by his participation in the walkthrough on Friday and the fact that they only called up one practice squad receiver to replace Joshua Palmer, you would figure that if Allen was out, they would also call up another receiver because they have a couple in the practice squad. So I think Allen's going to play, and it fucks up a lot of the game stacks. But either way, Mike Williams is an underperforming wide receiver, top of the model. I agree that he's going to go off tomorrow.
Definitely. So I need to double check the injury report really quick. But is Jahan Dotson? Question. I know he aggravated his hamstring.
I think he's going to be out. Going to be out.
So I was going to say Cam Sims.
Bruh. Okay. All right. So you called Devontae Parker 2 weeks ago. You called Brandon Ayuk's 2-touchdown game last week. If you call Cam Sims, who I get because Dotson's out and De'Ami Brown is out, so someone's got to play some snaps on the outside. If you call a Cam Sims touchdown, it's at FBI at New York State Gov AG on Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to play. 3,000, 0% projected. I mean that. Yeah. Even talking about that game, there are some pieces actually from that game that seem to pop off. Even from the Green Bay side, there seems to be a couple pieces that I think I'm going to pick off that really fit well. And again, if Jahan Dotson's out, Cam Sims is going to fill that role. Anything can happen then.
I think he's going to be out too. There was video posted on Thursday. He came up lame in practice, re-aggravated it, and then didn't practice on Friday, which is like a 99% chance generally that player doesn't play. So, Moose, if you call Cam Sims, we'll clip this. If you call Cam Sims, then, I need that crystal ball.
Yeah, and when if he doesn't score, then we'll just edit the video to be like 3 minutes earlier. But no, yeah, I think that goes to say, we talk about it, telling a story that might be a little too galaxy brain for a large slate, but finding injuries and where people are mispriced can definitely go well, which kind of reminds me, if I need to pull up the wide receiver model really quick, and then we'll go ahead and start to close out the show. But there is a receiver that is popping off. He's fourth in the model right now, only 5K. It's going to be a little popular, but is Dubes for Green Bay. I think he's an underperforming wide receiver too, if I am correct, Brian.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So that right there from that piece if you want to do maybe like a 1-1 stack, which is like super galaxy brain.
I like it. Right, Romeo Dobbs though he's basically been the lead receiver though, so I agree. And the model is loving some Dobbs this week. I think he'll be pretty popular. Our model has 11% on DraftKings, but 5K dude, it's a great play.
Absolutely. So, let's see here. Yeah, I think that's it. Ed says DJ Moore is an underperforming wide receiver. Can we just X him out? I think he's out.
So,
right?
I was, after last week, I was like, all right, dude, I'm not playing DJ Moore anymore. I'm not doing it. And then they trade McCaffrey and Robbie Anderson. It's like, all right, if he doesn't do it now, I'll be out this week. But yeah. I'm gonna play him one more week because who else are they gonna throw to? Sure, they'll probably lose 40-0, but like, if he doesn't get 15 targets, something's really wrong.
Yeah, exactly. How many targets does he have? Our projected. We have him projected for 10 targets roughly.
He should have 36 because it's gonna be like Terrence Marshall, like Shy Smith. Those guys are gonna get like 10 targets somehow.
I know, it's gonna be so dumb. Yeah, but the team total 13.5 scares me. Lowest team total on the slate. Yeah, that's tough. But again, in theory, someone's got to score those 13 points, and if there's only one player on the field.
True.
Yeah. So
that's true.
Any last thoughts or anything else you want to talk about, Brian, before I take us out of here?
Nah, dude, my dinner just got here. I think we talked enough about this slate. So I will just say, I know this is an awkward time for most people with NBA about to start and UFC earlier today, and we normally do this earlier. So if you have questions further, join the Discord. Holler at us there. If you're watching this on replay, we appreciate it. Chris will do the live Q&A tomorrow morning at 11 in the Discord. So join us there if you have further questions. And monitor injury reports. Monitor the Schefter and Rappaport news overnight. I think it'll be pretty key, Moose.
Yes, absolutely. And nothing better than I have Schefter on push notifications, and when I wake up 6:30 in the morning and I get to read all those tweets, it's like, yeah, cool. I know what I'm doing. I'm good now. And but yeah, so I just went ahead and put the link on how to join our Discord channel in the chat. Go ahead and join the Discord channel. Always chopping it up. Go ahead and join it for the NBA pre-lock channel coming here pretty soon. But until next time, Moose and Bryant from Occupy Fantasy. Have a good night.
Peace.